Welcome to Patriots Nation. I'm Mike Closer with my co-host Tracy Belmonte. Hi Tracy, how you doing?
Hi, Mike. Happy day after Thanksgiving.
Yes, I guess that's also meal number 2 day from Thanksgiving because I think I ate enough for 2 days already. How did you enjoy your Thanksgiving with your family?
Oh, I have my fat pants on. I'm ready to go in for round two.
Yeah, I understand you're supposed to wear sweats. I forgot what the rules were yesterday, so now I know for today's round two, so I'll be good to go on that. So thanks for reminding me about that.
Yeah, and I read this morning that the lovely Mr. James Comey and the lovely Miss Loretta Lynch received Thanksgiving Day subpoenas.
Yes,
So happy
yeah.
Thanksgiving indeed.
Christmas early as well, so that you couldn't ask for something better. Where we go from that's another story, but that would be another popcorn few days for both of us and many of us on the MAGA side, no doubt about it. We have a ton to go over, in fact. I'd like to talk about with you today a little bit about the fraudulent votes, what we might see in 2019, potentially with new runoffs or with potential indictments that may come down for certain folks. Would that cause, a new election? What President Trump may or may not be doing about it, at this time, or what can be done, especially with a new House coming in, what our flexibility is during a lame duck session, and in general, overall, what we've been dealing with in terms of the MAGA community, because after the House vote took place and we went through the Senate and the House, we gained seats. We actually didn't do too bad in the House overall. Now we're at a position where we have MAGA people, starting to discuss things in a disorganized way, and I'm trying to come up with every possible way of making sure everyone stays together. And I think, Tracy, this may actually show who was always on the train and who maybe truly never was. So, with that said, I'd love to get your take overall, since you and I haven't chatted too much after the votes. Tell us, a little bit about where you stand on things and where you see things going from here.
There's always going to be a little bit of dissension in the MAGA movement, and there are always those crybabies out there that act like snowflakes that jump ship at the first sign that Trump is bending to the whim of a Democrat. They don't realize they need to read art of the deal. Sometimes what Trump does is perfect strategy, and he sets the Democrats up for failure time and time again. Now, we have 2 years to win, and we on our side have notoriously bad messaging skills. So, to see how the Democrats' approach plays out, we have to look at places like Illinois, California, New York, New Jersey, where the people and businesses are fleeing, and then look at the Republican-controlled states, and the people and businesses are flocking there, and they're doing wonderfully. And we have to also consider the dramatic positive shift in the country's economy with tax cuts and renegotiating NAFTA and putting that forth. So how do we get that messaging out? We have 2 years, and we're up against a great big wall, Mike, because the MSM is another arm of the Democrat Party, and social media is basically controlled opposition at this point, and they're throwing off conservatives left and right. So we really have to strategize. How do we get this message across?
So I don't disagree at all. In fact, in my old days when I was in the working world, part of what I did beyond sales is branding and rebranding. And in this case, we're under a rebranding moment, and here's why. We still have a few rhinos left, just like the left has a few dinos on their side. I understand that. By getting them out, that doesn't necessarily give us all we need. So the Republican Party, to many, comes off sometimes in a way where they maybe are talking down instead of to, or instead of with. And the reason I can say that is because I interviewed many from the black community. One most recently, his name is Rogue Republican, and I believe, is in California. And he said to me, what he told me is from the hood. And he said, in the hood, we are, now he's a conservative, he said, we are perceived, as I'm the angry white man to young youth in the neighborhood. He said, we've all never met. So they always picture us in suits and talking down. So after hearing him out, I realized that a rebranding effort needs to be had. And how do you do that? How do you communicate a message to someone who thinks maybe you're evil. But really, if they just sat down and listened to the basics of the message, and maybe even to their grandmother's message about how do you grow up, you have proper discipline, you know, you follow the rules, and all the stuff your grandmother would say, it would almost actually be a Republican message or a conservative message. Does that make sense to you?
I mean, absolutely. I think the worst thing that we ever did was allow education to get controlled by liberals, and all these kids are getting indoctrinated. I saw it at the Thanksgiving table. I have two nieces. One niece, she's a Republican. Her dad is a former Democrat, recovering Democrat, and he's on the MAGA train now. He loves Donald Trump, and his kids are following suit. Now, my other niece, she comes from a Republican MAGA family, but she's liberal. And when I was challenging her on some of her ideas, especially socialism, because these kids are getting the idea that socialism is great, and the resurgence of this attitude that we can do it better is downright terrifying, it seemed that she was pointing to teachers and things that her teachers said. So I think that we Republicans, we that are MAGA, we need to be vigilant with our children's education. We have to question them. What did you learn today? We have to dissect it. And if we don't like what our children are learning, then she's getting speakers come in, normalizing certain mental illnesses. I mean, it's just, and when I say normalizing, like something like a gender identity disturbance is in the DSM. It is considered a psychological illness, but, and I'm all for tolerance for anybody. I'll call you whatever name you want, but with this normalization that it's a garden variety normal behavior choice, I think it's dangerous, and I think that parents need to become more vigilant what their children are learning, and I think people need to walk the walk. You can't leave the heavy lifting to just a few people in new media. You need to go out and scope too. You need to go out and volunteer with your Congress people today, like not wait for another 2 years before the election. No, you need to go and volunteer with them today. And we have to improve that ground game as well. But I think that the one major piece of this is the young kids today becoming indoctrinated in schools. We gotta, we have to stop that.
I'm so glad you said that, because recently on my show, excuse my allergies, I said something very similar about what's going on in schools, and I gave some examples. And so parents aren't asking their kids when they came home maybe what was said, but there's a lot of things being said that are confusing kids, even in elementary school heading to middle school, where they're being asked questions or they're being made references by a teacher, saying something. It could be as simple as you need to be tolerant to multiple or other genders, something as simple as that statement. And then the kid comes home, doesn't say a word to their parents. Later on, it comes up in an awkward conversation, and the mom and dad are going to be slightly shocked. Of course, I would be shocked if my son was at that age. And we need to start asking, what went on in class today? Did you, and find out, or audit a class if you're allowed to do so, and start understanding what's being said, because right now we've fallen behind, and you're in education and know much better than I do, but we have fallen way behind in the world, out of the top 20 in multiple categories that we used to pride ourselves in, okay? And even the basics, we could just do English and math and science and all these things, and you're wondering why. Well, like you said a few minutes ago, it fell to the liberal side. Now, we allowed that to happen. We also have the Department of Education, which really is an unnecessary department that really doesn't cast any type of direction other than under the most recent leader, which was Common Core, and which basically, Tracy, and maybe you can talk to this, people were being passed to grade levels where maybe they weren't supposed to be passed, and now under those last 8 years, kids that were graduating 12th grade, colleges are saying they had a 10th and a half grade education, so they're staying in college an extra half year or a year, which makes the loans go up and the payback take longer. Are you noticing, or did you notice anything similar around you in the education world, or hear anything similar?
What I notice is that the federal government, anytime the federal government gets involved in anything, it's terrible. They were passing all these regulations and all these standards, but they weren't they weren't funding them. They weren't training teachers. Now, yes, it sounds like a noble effort to want all these children to race to the top and get this X and Y education, but it doesn't work. Education has to be handled at the local level. I can tell you, in my state of New York, the taxes that I pay go to Albany. Albany redistributes it, and most of my tax money that I pay for schooling here, 80% of it goes to pay for New York City schools.
Wow.
It's absolutely, yeah, it's an asinine system. I think we need to blow up the Department of Education, not literally. Okay, don't call the Secret Service or anything. We need to get rid of it completely. Get rid of federal control, even get rid of state control. We need to have it where it's handled at the local level, and each local district can put together a program that best suits these children's needs. We're not making these children ready for the 21st century. We're not. What I noticed was when Common Core became the standard, we started to put the burden on teachers and teaching to tests. So these kids are not learning to be streetwise, which I think is just as important as being book smart. And we're only teaching to tests nowadays. And we have a lot of problems in education. I could talk a whole show on it, Mike.
No, I definitely have seen it. And so that means that other schools outside of New York City aren't getting the love necessary.
That's right.
To take care of what they're supposed to take care of. Also, I understand that some school districts that I talk to in California, teachers' input is not going back to where it needs to get to, because the teachers who have been trained to become a teacher, part of just isn't just teaching a lesson plan, but they're also putting together and implementing a lesson plan that might be part of their doctorate or something within their own wheelhouse that is passionate to them, that's not being heard. Now, for every problem that I have on my show, I like to talk about solutions. So I offered a few solutions or ideas that might help us get there, and it's not so much dollar driven. And I'll toss a couple out to you in the school district. All right, so back in the old days when they segregated males and females, the average grade letter was one higher. Now, there's many reasons for that. Obviously, boys and girls, boys want to pass notes to girls, and flirting and all that stuff takes place, and that's part of it. Also, some people learn auditorily, some people learn visually. I learn visually, where I take a snapshot with my eyes and I glance at a page, and I got 80 to 95% of it. I don't have to read the word to word. Some people read every word. So with that said, kids aren't being tested of which way they learn, and teachers aren't knowing which student in which area sitting in the classroom is learning which way. So a teacher might say, read page 10, and someone might perceive it different at the end. So one thought would be keeping kids in school longer, because some parents aren't home yet, and having homework done in school where people could work with each other, learn from each other, and or use electronic devices like iPads and all that, where you can't turn the page until you're verified that you've gone through it properly and it's been, we'll call it homework, but in-class homework. And by doing that, you're probably going to have a lot more oomph in the education, because even if you can actually pack that in a 4-day week, believe it or not, and be successful, and not go home and have 2 hours of homework every night where the kid goes to the bedroom, says to their parents, I did my homework, the parents don't check it, and after a while it becomes a habit of actually not applying any type of homework, right? It's just kind of getting it done. So these are just some ideas that I think we need to think out of the box, get a whole bunch of age group of teachers together in the same room, in, like you said, in each school district of what means the most to your communities, and start putting ideas out there and really make a difference in education. I think it needs a complete revamp, but I also think one more thing, Tracy, the money is always there. I one time added up all the money for all the school districts, and I went through state to state, and the money's outstandingly a lot. And then you're wondering, where the heck did the lottery money go? Where is this money going? So if the money's there, what's the problem?
Yeah, and the technology alone, you bring up a great point. We're at a point in our lives, I don't know if people realize this, but in the next 20 years, there will be self-driving cars. There might even be cars that kind of fly. So I guess like little
Yes.
airplanes that will people, and this is going to come in the next 20 years. If we have the technology out there, we have to start utilizing it, as uncomfortable as people like me might be with it. Uncomfortability is a good thing, but we need to have a good balance of bringing that technology into the classroom, because these kids are so used to their phones. These are the kids that, this is the I generation. They grew up with a cell phone. They grew up playing games on mom or dad's iPad. So we have to bring that into the mix, and we have to get back to basics too. There's nothing wrong with learning proper sentence structure and proper grammar the olden way by writing it out too in a notebook. So I like what you said with the iPads having basically they have to show they're comprehending the material before they can move on. I think that's a wonderful idea. If you said, you're absolutely right, the money is out there. We need to use this nice balance of technology with the old school methodology, because we're not empowering these kids with basic skills, and it's scary. These are the kids that are going to be making our decisions as we get older.
It is scary. And there was one last cool thing that I brought up and I discussed with the audience was a lot of people learn better, and it's been proven, if a lot of people that are good at music are good at math. A lot of people that are good at math that are good at music, meaning reading notes. And so music and rhyming and humor go a long way towards retention, meaning that if you leave a classroom saying, I learned something and it rhymed, or I learned something and it's in my head singing, or I learned something and the teacher was slightly humorous along the way, you'll want to come back for more. Similar to like absolutely. A great restaurant, if it's pretty good, you're going to probably go back.
Yeah, Mike, if you're a good teacher, you're a frustrated actor or actress. I always said that. I've always been very theatrical, and I've always been in the plays, and I've done films and TV shows and things like that. And that helps me in the classroom, because I'm delightfully crazy. I'm that crazy aunt that all the little kids want to hang out with because she'll play with them. And I really believe that in order to be an effective educator, you have to be a little silly sometimes. And I actually have a rap persona I use in my classroom called Feminem. And I will rap things sometimes as a little tie up, and the kids will it's the little things like that that kids will ask you for or remember you for. And I do it because there are those kids that when they're taking a test, they'll be like, oh wait, I remembered when my teacher rhymed, and they'll get the right answer for those things. It's almost like you have to put on a show because these kids are so used to the multimedia experience on the cell phones and the iPads and the availability of information. It used to be that information doubled every 100 years, Mike. Now information doubles every 12 hours. So you really have to keep things fresh and exciting.
That's a great comment. And like you said, with the rap part, it's like the hook part of the song. You always remember the hook. Even if you mess up the other words of a song, you're like, oh, I know the hook. And so that's a really good way to do it. Now, the education is one piece about rebranding, and here's why I want to bring it back to rebranding. So the MAGA community has the brightest folks, and actually no longer the richest folks. The richest folks are in the Liberal Party or the Democrat Party. And we always relied on billionaire status, and we don't have that anymore. So we have to go back to our basics. And so if it turns out that we continue to be the brightest, then we should be shining as such. And with that said, education becomes a piece of MAGA, and how we can, this conversation should be part of many conversations of people in your teacher community and your professor community, that they get together and actually can sit down and come back with ideas that can be implemented on trial, and as a trial basis be turned in as an example, rather than waiting years for it to be approved, because bureaucracy slows down some of the ideas you and I just talked about, maybe from getting there, even though information is doubling, right?
I feel like people in the MAGA community, there are, now granted, not everybody, but there are some loud voices that are getting very frustrated. And I understand the frustration. For me, I want to see, I don't know if it's that the midterm elections that we just had failed to note a meaningful cultural shift that I see just anecdotally, or was it that we lost these elections by fraud? There's a wonderful viral video out there. Maybe you can run it, Mike. I'm sure you've seen it. This girl's name is Rachel Toback, and she's the CEO of a cybersecurity company named Social Proof. And she took a viral video to show how easy it is to hack a voting machine. And you don't need any special skills. You don't need any special tools, and it can be done in less than 2 minutes very easily. And you can hack it to read whatever result you want. So I want to see, I think a lot of people in MAGA right now are getting frustrated because we don't see the GOP standing up to voter fraud. Because honestly, there was so many inconsistencies in this last election. You had in Arizona, oh, please, we know what happened in Florida, but in Arizona, you had 350,000 people vote for a Republican governor and vote for a Marxist crazy candidate that's a Taliban sympathizer in Kyrsten Sinema. I don't believe it. And even like in California, you had hundreds of thousands more people that voted for Democrat Congress people, but they didn't vote in the governor's election. There were so many inconsistencies. And I think that what I'm hearing from my Twitter followers is that why isn't the GOP addressing this? We only have 2 years. And there are things that we can do. And I think that is a part. Yes, we have to rebrand. I think walk away and all those movements, Brexit, I think that plays a role. But going forward, did we legitimately lose this election? Because I have questions about it.
So I think there's so many that have questions about it. It's frustrating. And so the first thing I have to say, as probably the best truth I can tell you, is it's easily solved and no one wants it solved, because we are usually on the wrong side of this, and that's a fact. For example, you can't point to the election recently where it came out in our favor, and it would be the opposite of what we just experienced. So with that said, it's out there. And by the way, we don't have the physical numbers in the United States based on total voters that would go out there and vote conservative versus liberal at this time. Now, a lot of that's a product over the last 8 years of what the country became. And it didn't, and we probably lost a chance at a good 10% right there. So can it be fixed? Yes. Could it be simple? Absolutely. Do we have the electronics to solve it? Probably in a week. 3 smart people in a room walk out and say, you walk in, you have a card, you do a thumbprint, and you do a code or something. And if this doesn't match, you're not voting. And it's as simple as something like this. And I think you mentioned to me pre-show, if you want to touch on, early voting tends to play an interesting role in this process. Do you want to touch on that?
I can't stand early voting. I think they need to get rid of it. There's no reason for early voting because so much can happen in the weeks up to an election. Plus, early voting favors Democrats typically, which is why they want it. But I think if you're not going to be around, you could always get that absentee ballot. I think that there's no oversight when it comes to provisional ballots. And I've heard stories anecdotally of somebody's dead mother getting 6 ballots in the mail. There's a lot of fraud that goes on with this early voting, which is why it favors the Democrats, in my personal opinion. I like voting on election day. I don't know about anybody else, but I love getting up. I put on my red, white, and blue, and I feel very patriotic on that day when I go and I vote. Even this last election where I had to hold my nose and vote for a Republican governor that I didn't like, who got trounced anyway. But, I think we need to get rid of early voting. Now, also, this nonsense of the people that are felons that are still on parole and people that are in prisons that are felons voting. That nonsense has to stop. This is the only incidents where I will call for more federal government. I think that there needs to be an amendment that if you're a felon, you're in prison, you lose your rights to vote. I don't like the states. I don't like the states, putting these propositions on the ballot and you can't understand them. Like this is what happened in Florida.
Yes.
The proposition for voting for felons was so wordy. It was just a bunch of word salad that a lot of people didn't know what they voted for. Now, I've been in that instance where I've looked at these propositions and I have no idea what they're trying to ask. So I'll always vote no on something I don't understand. But these that's another part to the reform, Mike, is that I think these propositions are worded or misworded on purpose to goad people into voting for things that they probably wouldn't vote for. So there's so much oversight that needs to happen here.
It's worded to confuse every
That's
time. Which
right.
one of these are not? And you forgot the word not. But meanwhile, the rest of everything else looked pretty. And then I would say that based on what I saw in Florida, it looks like 50% of the people voted the wrong way minimum.
Yes.
And that's probably true. Back to your early voting comment. So we have military, of course, that have to mail in their ballots, and that's because of their job. We have
Sure.
certain elderly and handicapped that can't go. With that said, we need to provide an electronic version for military that can be instantaneous and within a few days of the actual vote. So that would then curtail your early voting comment. I like your idea. Second, on similar, a lot of folks that are of, let's say, 75 and up, some of them still are not fantastic or enjoy email, but we might need to provide an alternate way or a kiosk in certain buildings that is mobiled in by a mobile vehicle, and they come downstairs, or if that's possible, and they vote on site. So,
I
go
was
ahead.
going to just interject with the elderly, Mike. I just have to tell you very quickly with my grandmother and grandfather, they did not know how to do the little Scantron thing, and they both were very shaky. They couldn't fill it in even if they knew. So I had to be the proxy that voted for them. Nobody oversaw what I voted. I mean, again, they voted Republican, so it was just like R down the line. But if I was an unscrupulous person, could have changed two votes.
Right. Now, and you bring that up too. Now, that actually was brought up in 2012, where Democrats, one of their old moves was, or were, where they would take buses to these elderly care facilities. They would pick them up. They would buy tuna fish sandwiches and coffee, and they would be their proxy. And they would just be so happy that this nice young woman or young
Right.
gentleman escorted them in and out. So these things have to be addressed like that. Okay, so that has to happen. And I still think that could happen, and that shouldn't be an issue at all. Another issue we have is that 30 plus states don't want to turn over their voter rolls for people to be seen because we have 10,000 112-year-olds, we have millions of illegals, and we have so many issues. The truth is, until we agree to what is the database of the United States, and within the United States, the database of each state, within each city, within each county, within each province, or whatever we call them, like in Pennsylvania, they have different words, and so on. Until we agree what the numbers actually are, we would almost have to do a yearly census in a sense. But until we agree, or base it on your taxes, or on your Social Security card, until we get to a point of agreement of the total number, can we then count the accurate number? And right now, the ballots don't always equal, meaning you send out this many ballots, but you're getting this many extra back. So we don't have that agreement, and it's not federalized. And I'm not ever advocating for more government, but
Same.
what do we do? What is the position and where we get the accurate count? Do you have any thoughts on how we get to the accurate count?
Oh, it's such it really is hard. I almost feel like we need to implode the whole system and start over again where everybody registers. In my state we have motor voter, which is a way to get illegals registered. Because in my state, which is of course as liberal can be, New York, our lovely king Andrew Cuomo has now made it legal for legal aliens to get their driver's license, and when they get their driver's license, they're registering to vote. So New York will never see Republicans elected ever again. It's bright blue. It's bright blue that it's glaring. So Mike, I think we have to start over again with the Board of Elections, and I think everybody needs to re-register, and maybe they have to do it in person.
Maybe so. Maybe with that re-registration, everyone does get assigned a Social Security card, right?
Right.
And
Right.
they all have a number, and
Right.
so maybe people of all ages, parents with children, everyone registers. And see, one issue we still have with that, though, Tracy, is that there are still people getting payouts of Social Security checks that have passed away years
That's
after.
true.
So even they can't get that correct at the federal government. And you know darn well there's a genius in a room that says, I already figured it out, just nobody wants it.
Right. I'm sure there is. I could tell you that the elderly are the ones that are preyed on for so many things. And I was at the Social Security office with my grandmother, and I heard one of the workers tell this elderly man that he had to vote for Democrats because the Republicans were going to take away his Social Security. So I'm sure you multiply that by how many Social Security offices there are
Hmm.
throughout the nation. I mean, we have a real big problem on our hands, and that's why I don't think I'm not a crybaby. I'm not. There are some seats that we did legitimately lose because we had 44 retirements. It's very hard when you don't have that structure in place and that ground game in place already, like these career House members have. It's very hard to win. So, granted, yes, we did legitimately lose seats. Plus, the Republicans bungled healthcare and some other things. But it's it's I don't think it's legitimate. I don't. And I don't want to sound like a crybaby snowflake. I really don't think that we lost the House legitimately. So this is a multi pronged problem and it requires a multi pronged solution. We're probably making it too difficult. We're probably coming up with solutions that are so difficult. There's probably something out there that somebody will put on Periscope chat right now that's easy. So yeah, but let those ideas rip.
And you're if we simply had enough investigators and we could simply say over the next month, investigate every single vote from all of these, let's say 6 elections of Minnesota, Montana, we go to Florida and Arizona and, wherever we all agree, I'm pretty sure if they took the time to research every single detail, we would end up revoting, or they would find out it was horribly wrong. And it's going to freak people out. And then people may not believe in a lot of things anymore going forward. So it's a tough pickle to get out of, but I think we did expose a few things on the good side, meaning
Yes.
we exposed tactics of what people do to try to usurp the election in their favor. And now we understand things better. So one of the things you get when you sometimes lose in a sports game is you might expose a weakness in the winning team that you use against them next time you play. And so there are things that I think we've garnered in this process that we've learned from. And one last thing on this topic is you have to admit, and I showed at least 20 debates, and I interviewed at least 12 candidates, I believe 12. And I got to tell you, some of the candidates were on the MAGA train, are on the Trump train, but were not MAGAlicious. And I'm going to tell you why they weren't. They did not show me any MAGA spirit. I found a few that did. And one was an independent, Shiva. Another that did, Susan in the state of Washington, Hutchison. And they had a spirit about themselves with something pure to get right. And then the others on the debate stage failed so bad, I don't even know how to explain to you, but they didn't hold their head up high. They danced around their support for President Trump instead of going all in. See, you can't tiptoe. Either you're all in on something like I am,
Right.
like I know you're all in on your profession, but if you wouldn't tiptoe around it, you're all in because you want the students to be better. Some people are not all in and they just show up to work. And so I saw people showing up to work and I saw probably 30% of them all in. And that bothered me a lot because you and I didn't handpick the candidates. President
Right.
Trump didn't handpick them. Did you have any comments without even candidate names? Did you happen to notice anything similar that I just said?
What I noticed was the candidates that were lukewarm on President Trump, they all lost. That's what I noticed. They really didn't. And I understand that feeling of having to hold your nose and vote for a candidate because they're sort of on your side. I almost feel like that the GOP puts up these lackluster candidates on purpose. Not the entire GOP. We're taking it back. We're making it magalicious. But the Rhino GOP, the Never Trumper GOP, they want things to be business as usual. They don't want a Donald Trump in there. It doesn't matter that he's making this country unbelievably great. It was like when Reagan was in office, he dealt with the same thing. It just wasn't as obvious because we didn't have all the social media all over the place and we didn't have 24-hour news cycles and stations like we we do now. But they don't want Donald Trump in there to make things better. They want it status quo. They want their power. They want their side cash that they're making. And they want just a good old boy in there that will do what they, maybe put on the appearance of working without actually changing anything. So I think part of it is that we have to get rid of and get rid of, not only get rid of that wing of the party, but I've heard people say that maybe we should form our own kind of MAGA party, although third parties we know sadly don't do so well. But I've heard people taking that drastic idea, putting that on the table.
I've heard that too, and that's why I thought rebranding to call us America's Party or the Party of Trump. But let's just say, what if the Republican Party became a new name, America's Party, formerly known as the Republican Party? And we figured out a branding effort that really, we have to understand grassroots. And the reason we have an Ocasio-Cortez or a Beto O'Rourke are two reasons. Ocasio-Cortez did the groundwork and is not bright at all. But because she did the hard tilling of the land part, she garnered the vote. Beto in Texas snuck in there because everyone believes Texas is always red, like I do, and they thought everything's just fine, and then boom, that moment happened where someone snuck in and garnered some opportunity. But if you look at their platforms, it's horrid, and it would really devastate any state, any city, let alone the United States. So we understand how they became, and now we should understand how not to let that happen again. So we should be learning from this as a group, recognizing what we did wrong on our end. We can't just sit here and go, we're all fantastic. We made some errors in choices of people, and now we have to do a much better job of a ground game and communications, regardless of a rebranding, and make sure we're talking with people in local town halls where we're speaking to independents and every type of voter. And we're breaking it down as easy as this, Tracy. We take $1. And we say, right now, of this dollar, we ask a liberal and independent, how much do you get to keep? And then we let them say the number. And they say the number now under President Trump. Whatever it is, it is. So let them shout out the number. They shout out, we get to keep, let's say they say 60 cents. We'll say fine. Now we'll say, you as a liberal, are you willing to pay Beto himself? Are you willing to pay him 40 more cents of that dollar? Which would leave you with a balance of X. And then let's say that's 30 or 40 cents left. Can your family live off of that? Can you pay your house payment, your car payment, all of your insurances, all of your local and state taxes, and everything else, and still live and survive? Yes or no, mathematically, does that work for you? And if they answer, no, it won't, then we have our answer. It has to come back to the almighty dollar. And I think if we don't speak in trillions, but we speak in terms of a buck, I think we can communicate our message very simply. And if they're a small business, we can communicate it in terms of regulation cuts. Okay, so either way, we have a way to break it down mathematically. And most, we are going to work with them, will understand the basics of the math part. Do you think that might work on a smaller stage in a town hall setting where we actually ask people a question so simple?
Absolutely. And I think that everybody out there, everyone that's watching, everyone that follows us on Twitter, you're revolutionaries. You are taking your country back. We're fighting an enemy that we haven't seen. It's such an insidious enemy. We haven't seen this in many, many years. This is like do or die time. If we lose the presidency in 2 years, we may never see our party get it back. So I think that everyone needs to look at themselves as a revolutionary, not in a violent sense, but we all have to go out there and do some lifting. You have to organize meetups. You have to go to the town halls and ask these kind of questions. You need to use Periscope, YouTube. You have to support new media, share new media, become new media. We have to take our country back, and we have to walk the walk if we're going to talk the talk. I'll tell you, I've asked people, I've done work with the RNC, trying to put together teams for our local campaigns, even in my state, which I'll concede is probably fallen, is probably never going to come back, but I'm still not going to give up the fight. And when I ask people to volunteer, we're all busy. We all have families. We all have full-time jobs. We're all busy people. I get it. We have responsibilities. But if you can give one day a week, a couple hours a week, whatever it is, you have to look at yourself as this is like the Revolutionary War all over again. And we have to fight it smart and we have to fight it hard. And when I say fight, I don't mean with violence. I mean with class. All the things that Mike said, all the things that I said. And I'm sure you have your own ideas, and I would love to hear them.
You're spot on there, and you just mentioned media, and I think that's the next topic anyway, because
Yep.
we have two parts of this media. We have new media and social media, and we have what used to be some call mainstream, I call opposition media. And most recently, you and I both found out over the last, let's say, 2.5 years, more so even recently, Fox News is gone too. And Fox News went that way the moment they supported what happened with Acosta being kicked out. So we've seen that happen. And then on social media, for no issue at all, many folks are being either suspended, timeouts, kicked off, banned, any of the above for defending free speech. And I'm not talking saying even egregious language. I'm just talking having a stance on a topic or a side. And we've all been in timeouts before, and now we're seeing some of the larger names starting to disappear because they had a voice and they garnered a very large, let's say, listenership, viewership, or at least, at least in the Twitterverse, in a, so many charactership, so to speak, way. So we're at this point now, we're at a crossroads where new media, like you just said, get out there and scope, get out there and use YouTube. Well, I feel after everyone I've gotten to meet, you included, there's probably 10 to 15 or no more of us in the United States that people go to for the broadcast part, meaning they tune in because we all have a different way of presenting it, but they love our content. They know we research it. We provide at least 2 sets of facts, and we post our sources. We don't just say says or sources say. And then there are a few good, excellent, incredible reporters, that dig deep. We have like Tracy Beans, and does on-the-field reporting, and Vandersteel really well. Laura Loomer has her style, and she gets under people's skin to the point of getting the intel people won't go get. And so without these people, we would have nothing. So we only have so many go-to people, let's call it on our staff, and that we can rely on. And then we have a lot of fakers and pretenders that are just regurgitating something they heard from you or from me or from any of the people I just named. That's the position we're in. So either we need to be louder, us 12 or 15, or we need to add, as you said, 150 and 300 more over between now and as the season begins for 2019 and through the next presidential cycle. So where are your thoughts on my stance on those things? And also, do you see it as any larger than I see it of 10 to 15 excellent, reporters?
No, I agree with your estimate of 10 to 15. There are a lot of people who are big names out there that are paid opposition, that they appear to be MAGA, but they're not MAGA. And you can see them because they all seem to jump on a topic. Like, let's take Q, for example. I'm not a Q person. I've never been a Q person. It's just one of those things that I just don't have time for because you really could get lost. That doesn't mean I don't believe in Q. And I've actually been told by some top people in our intelligence community that Q is indeed a real thing. So I don't bash it and I don't believe in it completely, but my mind is open to it. I'm open to the possibility that this Q conglomerate exists. If you ever notice the paid opposition that appears to be MAGA, they'll pick an issue like Q and they will jump on that issue all together within the same 24-hour period, and they seem to have the same talking points. That's how I know the difference between real and fake when it comes to this industry. So you're right, there is about 10 to 15. And you don't mistake. We have bullseyes on our back every day. Mike, you have a bullseye. I have a bullseye. You have a lot of people. Ann has a bullseye. We know that they just took Laura Loomer and they banned her from Twitter for speaking facts about female genital mutilation, which was just upheld by a federal judge. So I mean, she was speaking facts, whereas other people like Ilhan Omar, who was that Congresswoman out of Minnesota that just won. She supports female genital mutilation. Sorry, because she
Yeah.
believes in Sharia law. She believes in Palestine. She thinks that Israel is an evil entity, and she believes that Judaism is evil. And she writes these things on Twitter, and everybody leaves her alone. But someone like Laura Loomer, who's just putting down facts about FGM, she gets kicked off. It was just they're looking at our tweets, they're dissecting our tweets, and they're kicking us off for no good reason altogether.
And they know it's our only or one of our top means of our community and
Mm-hmm.
communication, because yes, we can pick up the phone, but it's an easy way to reach hundreds of thousands or tens
Right.
of thousands. And you bring up Ilhan Omar. Not only is what she's saying disgusting and wrong, and what she does not supersede who we are and what we're supposed to be about. It's very similar to what eugenics is and what was done with
Yes.
Margaret Sanger and with Hillary Clinton, what she believed in as her idol there. So there's a lot of similarities of where that party was going that becomes so scary that the average parent would not know what you and I just spoke about. Honestly, if you went to school, and we talked to a bunch of 10 to 13-year-olds, they may never have heard FGM. But don't
Mm-hmm.
doubt it that they're already hearing the gender stuff. The next step is going to be what we just spoke about. So it is out there, and the fact that we just discussed it and it became a topic of conversation like this is just horrid for them to. I can't believe it was even advocated for in our country and Minnesota soil, and that
Yes.
parents are not understanding what happened. And here's why. What you just described was Operation Mockingbird. And Operation Mockingbird, of course, is when everyone starts doing the same thing. So when they came out against Q, all of the fake MAGA came out against Q with similar
Right.
language about it, right?
Yes.
Meanwhile, you and I ride the middle on that one, meaning I believe in it. It's a never-ending puzzle that have many cases already proven to be very true. And in
Mm-hmm.
many cases takes you down to another sub-puzzle that takes a lot of time and effort. And some people are tremendously awesome at it
Mm-hmm.
and put all their effort and time into it. And I applaud that. And we all do other things too. We put effort and time into other things. And so the people are not watching other news broadcasts. So, for example, if a parent were to watch Fox, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, and let's say the local Fox, and they did that straight for a while, they would start to see it. And because they're only sticking with one brand in most
Mm-hmm.
cases, and a lot of people do, and by the way, a lot of us did for many years during the early
Right.
Obama years, we would stick with Fox. Then Roger Ailes dies, Politico comes in as the editing team, things start to disappear, and all of a sudden we start to realize who the broadcasters are that are never Trumpers, and they have a slant to their broadcasting. But who else would recognize what you and I recognize? How many people are out there on the left recognizing what you and I just discussed? And I'd have to tell you, not many.
I'll tell you just personal experience, and I don't think that he would care that I'm saying his name because he said it to audiences full of people. Bill O'Reilly has told me he was very, very happy to cut ties with Fox because they had him on a leash. They control the things that he said, and they do control the talking points of their anchors. Some of them you can't control. Like Sean Hannity is a firebrand all his own. You can't put a muzzle on him, so he can't be contained, but he does get into trouble. And we did hear about the latest bit of trouble he got into by appearing at the Trump rally. But he's gotten in trouble times that you haven't heard about because of speaking the truth. And it's become the bias against Trump, or I should say the appearance of not having bias against Trump in the beginning was all about making money. They know that we're hardworking people and we have money to spend. And they are basically another type of fake MAGA, save some of the pundits like a Sean Hannity. You can tell who's you can kind of pick it out now who's real MAGA and who's fake MAGA on Fox. So Fox decided to invade our turf because they realized a lot of people are cutting the cord to TV, that they've had it with this cable news structure. And now they're starting to offer membership packages for some of their faces, and basically going into the area of new media or internet media, or kind of stepping on our turf, but making it more stylized. So they're slowly coming into our territory. And I don't like it. Stay in your
Yes.
own backyard and play.
But I have some good news on that front. So the good news is that yes, they're trying to invade us. But here's the one thing they never could do through a TV box, like myself and you and many others. We get to know people. And
That's
so
right.
I have hundreds of thousands of people, and I've actually memorized thousands of names. So I can tell you that they look forward to the back and forth. And because we get instant gratification through this process, and they get instant gratification back, and we get instant results in return, we have garnered something that they will never get to. And so, for example, Hannity's radio show, he gets away with more than his TV show. You can clearly see
Definitely.
it. And as Fox jumped into new media, they tried Periscope. They couldn't touch my numbers and many other people's numbers because they are talking to the camera. They're not talking to the person. And so
Right.
that's the difference now. We've grown through social media. So you've gotten to know your Twitter followers over many moons of time. Let's say I signed up in 2009 or 10, and I only used it for the last 3.5 years because I
Yes.
really didn't understand it and I didn't really think it was a big deal. So
Same
that was
thing.
me. I was late, I think, to the game. But you've gotten to know people, right? In
I
fact,
actually,
go
oh, I
ahead.
was going to say, Mike, this was very sweet. Not only do you get to know people, but I got an inbox the other day. Somebody remembered I broke my foot on Thanksgiving last year, and they just want to make sure my feet were okay. I mean,
That's
it's just the most adorable platform, truly, if you're not getting thrown off of it.
It's been amazing. In fact, I was in the smallest town. I think I told you that story where my dad used to live, and I got recognized, and they just said, "We appreciate your work. Thank you for telling the truth." And it was just like a minor, like, gotcha moment. And then I realized when I got back, more so than ever, it makes you think like, "Oh, wow, our responsibility just went up a little higher."
Yes.
Meaning, we're having a lot of fun sometimes, we're talking a lot of serious stuff, and all of a sudden you want to get things right even more than before. So Fox is out there checking multiple sources, and sometimes we'll use the term sources. And me, when I quote something, I'll say, well, I got it from this reporter, that reporter, the true pundit, the this and that, and I will actually post the link and show the research or where I got it from or multiple locations. And I won't just say something. And I think that's what they're appreciating more is the authenticity part, which is something we all bring that they don't bring to the table because they're more polished. And I think they want the regular person that relates. They know that your background's in education. So when you're speaking on it, they're going to be all ears to go, well, what would
Right.
Tracy do? What would she say? And that's a big deal. Where when you're a commentator on Fox, that's what you do. That's all you do. So really, what is your background? You went to professional school to be a broadcaster. We didn't go to school to be a broadcaster, and look at the success we're having with the audiences we garner. So I think we have a leg up, and I wouldn't be as concerned about them taking over. Maybe our bandwidth, but that's about it.
Yeah, you just remember Allison Camerata, who's now on CNN, that bashes Trump every time she opens
I
her mouth,
remember.
was on Fox and Friends, and she was the biggest conservative. So it goes to show you how phony they are for a paycheck. We're authentic, we're real. Well, our mess ups are our mess ups, and our evidence. We definitely back up what we say 150%, and we're honest because we can be. And I think that's such a nice that's just a nice feature of new media that you don't get anywhere else.
It's refreshing. And I think I could tell you your Thanksgiving comment. I had so many Thanksgiving wishes in the inbox, but part of it was they were thankful for having my show. And then I said I was thankful.
We all are.
Thank you. I was thankful for the viewership, and I asked everyone during Thanksgiving to turn their viewership into engagement in 2019. So I said, I love that you're a viewer. Now I want to see which of you can step up and be part of the solution going forward, and I appreciate the viewership. And I'm getting a lot of people send me notes. I have time. I can do this. I can help this. I can help that. So that's something the TV will never get. And so I think that is our leg up going forward.
Excellent. And I have to say, people will get mad at me for not following back. It's not that I don't want to follow people back. I do. But you have to understand, if you follow more than a certain number, I believe the number is 200 people back per day, you go on a Twitter list and they will actually start to ban your account for aggressive following back. I'm not kidding. So I follow back at a snail's pace, which is why it's so off. And I tend to follow back people that engage with my account. So when they at me at something, I almost automatically will follow them back, just like because it's easier that way. So I know that it's not a fake account, it's not a bot account. Sometimes you'll get liberal accounts that are fake MAGA. So it's my way of kind of like just double checking. So I think engagement, you could probably agree with this, Mike, that you're more likely to engage or follow somebody that's engaging with you rather than these quiet accounts that you don't know who's running that account.
Absolutely. And how much time do you really have to start looking through their follower
Exactly.
or following list? It would take a while for you to look at everybody who said hello to you and all that stuff. So what you said is right. And in the Periscope world, for me, and when you have a gold badge, you're supposed to have very few people you follow. So if you start following too many, the same type of thing could happen in the Periscope world, which again is owned by Twitter.
Huh.
So
I didn't know that.
they have implemented new rules, and there's new rules coming in the new year that people may not be ready for that may include advertisements. So again, conservatives will always have to work around another obstacle where a liberal does not in that media space. And that's, it used to be 91% was against us, Tracy. I now want to say that maybe it's 97, and we have 3%, and that means we need to shout that much louder and have that many more people, as you first said 20, 30 minutes ago, about we need more of you out there scoping on the scene and catching something and being part of the story, or sending one of us the story, and then we'll give them credit. Like I do that. I'll say, oh, I got this from so-and-so that was live at the rally, and when Anne's at the rally, I'll have her name, and I'll put it in there. So everyone deserves the credit because they were part of the solution. So I think that was something we can do in new media that's quite special. So I think this topic, people are starting to understand. I wish the liberal side would take a look beyond one brand and look at them all and realize that they really need to take a step back from what they've been being told by all and look at all. And they're going to start to see something quite similar and stunningly shocking. It's very scary, actually. We have just a couple minutes left. I wanted to touch on one more thing, if you'd like to, which would be on Chief Justice Roberts, if you'd like, because a couple recent things happened. You want to hit on that?
Oh, am I mad at him? I'm so mad at him.
Do it. Tell me.
Well, we know that on Tuesday, President Trump lashed out because the Ninth Circuit, which has a turnover rate of, what is it, 79%, he lashed out because they said his immigration policy was unconstitutional. And so Trump, rightly so, bashed the Ninth Circuit Court to Justice Roberts coming to the rescue of the Ninth Circuit Court, saying that we don't have Obama judges and we don't have Bush judges, and that's absolute nonsense. So, look, Barack Obama attacked the SCOTUS at the State of the Union. Do you remember that?
I do. I saw the clip again today. You're right.
Did Justice Roberts ever open his mouth after that? No. So this is highly inappropriate. And sadly, we can't remove Justice Roberts because we would need 67 votes in the Senate to impeach him, and that's not going to happen. So, we're stuck with this turncoat. This was the turncoat that brought us Obamacare. So I almost feel like, what do they have on this man? Someone has something on this man that they're controlling him. I'm sorry, but I've been saying that since the Obamacare decision, because I've read that decision 50 times and I still don't understand his reasoning.
Well, people get down when they start. Every time we get a little bit up the mountain, and then all of a sudden you get something like this where the Chief Justice says something, you're like, ugh, come on. This is the easiest one of all. The Chief Justice is advocating that all people seeking the word asylum can just waltz on in. That's basically in a paraphrased way. And we know that isn't true. And we know that's your thoughts and feelings, and we don't deal with thoughts and feelings. So a while back, I played a video of a baby bear, a cub, with its mama bear going up the side of a major a wilderness cliff that was snowy. The mama bear made it up, and the baby bear kept going and sliding, but worked so hard and found another way up the mountain. And it took literally, in the video, that was kind of fast forward a little bit, but let's just say roughly 5 to 7 minutes. And the mom waited on top with bated breath, like, come on, you can do it, and finally did it. And there's always a way. And so even though we keep running into these things that you just said, And even though it's just one more thing in the way, I still haven't seen President Trump wince. I didn't see his charisma change. I didn't see his smile change. I saw a determined look when he was at the South White House, sitting in there. I saw like wheels turning, steps ahead. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to move here, do this. And I saw things working. And because of the way we are in the conservative side, always working harder with smaller numbers to achieve a much better result, I know it's going to be there for us, and people have to understand the payoff and not look backwards on stuff like you and I just discussed, because you're right. He should be, at the minimum, he should be censured if we could do such a thing to this, right? And he should be censured. And it's disappointing that's just one more thing. And by the way, the Ninth Circuit Court over time will be replaced, and President Trump will be putting the most judges in place than any president in history if he's there throughout the whole term. This is amazing.
Mike, 79% of their decisions get overturned. Imagine that you were driving a car and it broke down 79% of the time. That's basically what we're dealing with here. And we're dealing with the Ninth Circus, which I love the way you put that.
Yes.
If you had a car that broke down 79% of the time, you would trade it in. You would shop for a new, you would get rid of this monstrosity. So we definitely have to replace the judges, and hopefully that would be coming in the next few years, which is why everything that we've talked about is so important. The court system is the most important of the branches, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, especially recently, where we have had presidents like Obama put forth an executive order on DACA, for example, which is highly unconstitutional, but was found constitutional. So basically, Obama could change the law with a stroke of the pen, and when Trump tries to rescind that, these courts, these liberal courts, are telling him, no, you can't do that. Now, it was good enough for him, but it's not good enough for you. So we have to get very conservative justices on the court. And sadly, when you put a justice on the court, sometimes you don't know what you're getting. You may get a Justice Roberts who you think is conservative, but is really not.
Right, and not only did President Trump try to overturn it, which he's allowed to do by a new executive order, at the same time, all he really wanted to do is honor the laws on the books, which they're still having a problem with, which is really our basic issue. Is the law and order president is what he wanted to be, and he's trying to show us his might to make sure that's honored, and he's going to stop at nothing to make sure that that happens. So the fight continues, and it's Tracy and my goal to try to do this every week based on our schedules, to bring to you a Patriots Nation episode with topics that are passionate to us. But if it turns out you have a topic you feel Tracy and I should be rapping about here together, feel free to drop us a tweet or send us a note, and we can maybe add it to our list of requests of possible debate or conversation, so we can go over it in deeper detail. And today we went over a lot. I love the teaching ideas and the conversation. I think that garners its own whole episode and special guests and a roundtable, and maybe that's a future Zoom/episode to be had. But
I like it. I like that idea.
Yeah, that could be fun. I think it would be fun. So thank you very much for hanging out. I know this is Thanksgiving weekend, and hopefully you have a couple of days off.
Oh, I do, and I'm going to enjoy every minute of it. As we break and we say goodbye for this week, I'm going to be knee deep in mashed potatoes again.
Excellent. So. I am me too, in about 1 hour. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching Patriots Nation and for hanging out with Tracy Belmonte and myself, Tracy. Tell everyone your Twitter address.
You can find me at Real Politidiva. I also have a website, politidiva.com, where you can find episodes of Patriots Nation and my other show, The Better View.
Thank you very much. And you can find me at The Best Closer on Twitter, on Periscope, and on Facebook, where I keep the largest database of MAGA memes you'll ever find, if you're looking for something fun to share with the family and get the point across. Everyone, have a great rest of your weekend and holiday weekend, and Tracy and I will see you very soon.
Good night.
Good night.